Once that pressure goes out, do I have, as we call it in business, permanent scars that would prevent me from going back again into business? Or, you know what? No, I learned the lesson. And now I'm back into, you know, the growth mindset and the challenge mindset. And I'm really willing to, hit the ground again and just, go and challenge the whole world again or not. That's, what it means to have a resilient mindset.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Richer Geek podcast. Today's guest is Mohamed. He's a serial entrepreneur, product visionary, and author of Inside-Out Entrepreneurship. We'll talk a little bit about that book. He has over 20 years of experience in AI and cloud computing. All of us know that. Mo's built and sold multiple successful companies. He now dedicates his expertise to empowering diverse founders through his entrepreneurial conditioning framework, helping them raise millions and build resilience on their journeys. Get ready for insights on thriving in the startup world with one of the industry's most transformative mentors. Mo, how you doing?
Hey, Mike, doing great. Thank you very much for having me with you here.
Absolutely. So I like to start out our podcast with our listeners getting to know a little bit about who Mo is. I don't care about your entire life. Some people tell me what kindergarten they went to, and let's keep it in the reference of um, what made you who you are and how did you get involved in what you're doing now?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm an engineer by most of my experience and by education. And I worked in big tech companies like Microsoft, Amazon, or AWS. And and I thought that I learned enough about building companies or products, or especially high-tech products. And then around 8 years ago or 9 years ago, when I decided to transition to become an entrepreneur, even though I studied a lot about entrepreneur prior to that, I dealt with business people. But when I made that switch, I did everything that the experts been telling me not to do. I did all the mistakes, even though I knew that those are mistakes. And and I went through, the typical lows and highs of, building any new business. And I definitely got a lot of transformation that took place during that journey. And I realized that there's a big piece in how you build a business that is missing in books and literature in general, which is the psychology of entrepreneurship.
Mhm.
And how do you work on your mindset as an entrepreneur, so that you become much more successful than what you even would anticipate or think of yourself. And as I always say, your business is going to grow as much as your mindset is growing as well with you. So I wrote that book, and I'm working with entrepreneurs right now. I'm building a Boundless Founder, the community called Boundless Founder Community, where I'm helping entrepreneurs, with those principles in mind, to number one, help them do that transition.
Mhm.
Techies, product managers, engineers who decided to become founders and build their own companies. How do they do that shift? And then how do they grow from that point to become, owners or builders of $1 billion company?
Yeah, and yeah, it's so true. It's being an entrepreneur myself and the struggles. It's like I'm going, yep, yep. I bet I know the mistakes that Mo made, and I made them also. And um, I think that mental aspect is probably the biggest aspect. You can have all the knowledge in the world. You can be a 30-year programmer, 30-year engineer, go and create your own engineering firm and fail because you don't have that mental, you don't know how to switch it, because I have a lot of entrepreneurs tell me that, you know what, for so many years I had someone else, I had quotas, I had deadlines, I had these these things that other people gave me. Now I have to create them for myself. So let's get into a little bit of that mental resilience and the difference of, what it takes to actually make that switch. What are some of the cues?
Yeah, absolutely. Now, maybe before that, let me maybe give a quick analogy or an example of how does it feel or what does it mean to move from the corporate world to become an entrepreneur? Think of yourself swimming in a pool, a warm pool with lanes. There's a lifeguard beside you, and you're just going back and forth. This is corporate life. Now, how does it feel when you work as an entrepreneur by yourself? It's exactly similar to someone throwing you in the middle of the night in a cold ocean and you do not know where the shore is. And now you need to
Yes.
figure it out. Right? Now, you see there the difference is huge day and night. In the first one, your mindset is all about how do I go fast in that lane? Right? And how do I make sure that I just can go back and forth, back and forth? And it's all about, just spinning faster. When you switch to that other mode, you're in the middle of a cold ocean. You see that you get thrown into a completely different environment that is hostile, unforgiving, and you do not know where to go from that point. Now, what is the most important thing in that specific moment is what? Is cooling down and start orienting yourself and understanding your environment and now figuring out what you need or what need to be done to reach the shore or at least to survive and thrive in that journey. That's the difference in mindset that you need between the first one and the second one. There's a huge difference. And I'm not saying that one of them is better than the other, but each one of them has its own mindset and its own way to work. Now, let's talk about the mindset that you need in being an entrepreneur, giving that environment. Hopefully, that gives everyone a vivid picture of what does it mean to do that jump or that switch. Now, in my book, I talk about mental resiliency and mental robustness. Now, because I'm an engineer, I thought of these two terms first from an engineering perspective. When you think of robustness, if you're building a bridge, a robust bridge means that it's a bridge that can withstand the pressure and it does not get deformed or collapse. So you build it, there's the wind, there's small earthquakes, there the pressure of the cars, driving on it, then the bridge need to withstand, right? Its form or need to continue performing its function despite all those pressures. That's being a robust bridge. Now, the same thing when you use that term or that definition on your mindset, the same thing to your mind happens to your mind. You want to make sure you're going to be hit by unexpected events every day. And you want to make sure that your mindset stays positive, stays oriented, in the right way so that you can keep going. And maybe I'll share a quick story around that, from my personal experience. 6 months after, founding my first company, we were using AWS or Amazon Web Services. They gave us $100,000 credit, and we thought that credit is going to keep us going for a year. After working 6 months, we were ready to demonstrate our product. And one day, as I was just getting to the conference to demonstrate my product, I got an email from AWS telling me that I owe them $65,000. And I just said, I was just shocked. A few weeks ago, when I was checking our credits, we had more than $50,000 with them. How could we burn through more than $110,000 in just a few weeks? I got frozen. And it took me 4 weeks actually to get out of the negative mindset and the paralysis mode and to start going back and negotiating that with them. Eventually I was able to do that, but it took me a significant amount of time to really recover. I wasn't robust back then. That event deformed my way of thinking. It just changed it. And that's when I did not have the right mindset or have the robustness of my mind and mindset in general. There's another story. We're going to talk about it, how actually the opposite of that. But let's talk about resiliency for a bit. Now, resiliency, again, from an engineering perspective, if you add a pressure on an object, a resilient object is even if it gets deformed, when you release that pressure, it gets back to the original form, like a rubber ball, right? You can squeeze it and it can change its shape. But once take off that pressure, it goes back to original form. The same thing when it happens to your mindset. Let's say an event like the one that I just mentioned, that story. Once that pressure goes out, do I have, as we call it in business, permanent scars that would prevent me from going back again into business? Or, you know what? No, I learned the lesson, and now I'm back into, you know, the growth mindset and the challenge mindset, and I'm really willing to, hit the ground again and just, go and challenge the whole world again or not. That's, what it means to have a resilient mindset. And they both work hand in hand together. You do not want to be, you know, robust as a brick, so that you get with any pressure that you get broken. But at the same time, you do not want to be, so soft that the least, event or a minor event would just take you out of balance. You need to have that balance between these two. And this is where you need a mentor, an advisor, and someone to really work with you, take you, through that journey, and basically show you yourself in the mirror. Just hold the mirror in front of you and tell you, look, this is how you look right now, and this is how you need to change. Now, the other story, as how building resilience and robustness can help you to really get your business grow and turn it around. 4 years into my journey, 4.5 years, after I learned a lot, through all those events, I got hit by so many events similar to the AWS build that I mentioned. A company actually approached us and said, "We're interested to buy you." Okay, we're happy. I mean, they're about to give us a good offer. Now, we went through all the due diligence. They interviewed my employees. They looked at our bank account. They looked in our source code. And only 2 hours before signing the LOI, they backed off. And now we were basically just making sure that we're just making ourselves ready for that acquisition. We did not fundraise. The company was definitely running out of cash because this was a big distraction for us.
Yeah.
Now, in the original mindset that I had, if something like this happened, I would just say, you know what, just let's throw the towel and we're done, and we're going to shut down the company. But in less actually than 24 hours, I took that LOI before anyone else knew about that they backed off. Even my co-founder did not know about that. And I went and I shopped around with other companies that might be interested. I told them, hey, I have a company that is interested to buy us. Are you interested to take a look and maybe buy us as well? By the end of that week, I was already meeting with 4 CEOs. And we got actually a 3 times better deal, eventually because of that. You see, the difference here is not because I got smarter or anything else. There's, of course, the luck plays a role here, but it's just how you respond to the event. How do you turn the event from a big threat that could take your company down to an opportunity to even gain more money? It's all in the mind, in the mindset. So that's that. Hopefully that explains what the difference and why it's really critical for any entrepreneur to focus on mindset. I'll close maybe with this. The most important asset for any entrepreneur is their mind and their mindset, period. Nothing else.
Yeah. Yeah. That is so true. Let's talk about another thing. So I have the mindset. I want to do well, but the world has so many distractions. And I know when I first started, it was like, oh yeah, I don't feel like working today. Well, you know what? I'm not. I had a bad day yesterday, and you get, I'll just go play golf and think about it today. There's always excuses, and it took a coaching. There's 2 different coaches that I had. One was a business coach, one was the mental coach, and you put those together, and the outcome, if you do exactly what they say, is a successful entrepreneur. But one of the things that I had to do, and maybe you can talk about this, I had to have what's called a default calendar that I couldn't break unless something really bad was happening. At 8 o'clock on Monday morning, I do this, and 9 o'clock I do this. So it kept me focused. so that, you know what, I have appointments. It could be just a phone call, it could be cold calling, but I had, you can't just go out and say, okay, what Monday morning, 9 o'clock, here, I'm an entrepreneur. Okay, what am I going to do today? And you have no idea. So
Yeah.
talk about just the beginnings of being that entrepreneur. You have the mindset, you really want to do it, but you have to have that focus.
Yeah, you said it right. Yeah, absolutely, Mike. It's all about discipline, right?
Hmm.
So what you're trying to maintain is a disciplined execution day after day. Now, that disciplined execution, you cannot do it by or maintain it by just feeling that you need to do it every day. You have to do it regardless, as you said. Now, you can do it either with pain, by just pushing yourself, or you can do it with the right perspective. And this is where your mindset also plays a role. If you're able to reset, and one of the things that I always share with entrepreneurs and coach them around is, look, you need to reset your mindset every day. Because we know, yeah, as you said, maybe I had a difficult day yesterday. But the challenge here is, how do you reset the next day or even before you go to bed as much as you can, so that when you go next day, it's just a fresh day for you. That's really important. And that only comes when you are able to put things in perspective. So for example, one of the exercises that I encourage entrepreneurs to do usually is, around separating their own identity and their own life from the company. We as an entrepreneurs, most of the time, we confuse our own identity with our business identity until you get savvy enough, like you, Mike, you've been into many businesses, and you know how, for long enough, you know how to separate that. Your personal life is one thing, and your own identity. I know that I wouldn't say personal life, identity. This is really important. It's easy to say, the work-life balance, and let's separate all of that, but that doesn't happen unless you do that fundamental thing, which is separating your identity from your business. And what I mean by that is, look, your business at the end of the day is one of your projects, and it's one of your life milestones. Your life is much bigger than that, right? If it did not work out in that business, you know what? You learned a lot. And as they say, failure is the best teacher, and success is a lousy teacher. So, if you think of it this way, even if your business is just now is upside down, and you say, you know what, I know that I have a chance, you have that confidence and build that confidence, that you have a chance to build another one even much better than the other one or the first one. That makes you actually coming in the next day saying, okay, now how do I maximize my learning, and how do I make sure that I'm doing the best possible response, to whatever taking place around me. You see, you can find all the routines, figure out, different systems and all of that. But if you're not looking at the right, from a right perspective, all of these, you can still, grind your way through them, but it's going to be pain.
Hmm.
You do not want it to be painful. You want it to be rewarding, right? Yeah, that's the most important thing.
Yeah. Yeah. And a lot of times, those most painful times of a founder's life is some of the most important times.
Yep.
Like for me, try owning hotels during COVID. It's um, very painful time, but I'm thankful for it because I'm a much better entrepreneur now because it forces you, and just like you said, and ladies and gentlemen, when something that drastic happens, you could say, you know what, oh, I throw in the towel. It's not worth it. I don't have the energy. Or you can say, dang it, you know what? I'm going to succeed. I'm going to do whatever it takes. I'm going to think outside the box, and you just do it. And it just really, really helps.
Yep.
Everybody's Mohamed. Let's get, we don't have much time left, but let's get inside some of the other chapters. His book is The Inside-Out Entrepreneur.
Yep.
What else can we find inside that book?
Yeah, absolutely. The book is basically using the analogy. I love the analogies and stories. So it's using the analogy of climbing mountains, right? when any mountaineer, go to it and talk to any mountaineer, no matter how experienced they are, they would tell you that before you start, you need to condition yourself. And then they have a set of dimensions to do that. The physical, the mental, the emotional, and a few other things. Now, the book talks about the other different dimensions. Mindset is one of them. The other one is definitely the emotional conditioning, which basically, how do you make sure that your emotions are not taking over your thought process? And
Mm,
there's that was so-called the thought emotion loop,
mm,
and that can easily, if you that down spiral, if you get into it or if you get caught by that, you can easily confuse facts with what's in your head. You know, it's not the fact that your company is going to close, but because you've been thinking about it so much, you believe now it's a
mm,
fact and you just act accordingly, right? So that's one dimension. The other dimension is definitely, I even believe in the spiritual dimension that all of us have.
yep.
And regardless of what is your belief in general, but having in mind that, look, we do not have control over most of the things taking place around us.
Yeah.
Will make you number one, relief. Number two, put things in perspective. And number three, focus on what you really can control. And you probably know this, Mike. The only thing that you can control is you,
Hmm.
your thoughts, your emotions, and how you respond. If we focus on that, I believe that things are going to be lined up. And there's also a bonus chapter that talks about the financial well-being. One of the things that, and this is part of the conditioning. Um, I wanted to actually, maybe I'll tell a quick personal story
Hmm.
around that. When I wanted to build my company, first company, my wife really opposed that. Our family came from, they used to be employees, and my wife also worked at Microsoft. And she said, well, what if it failed? And I kept thinking about that, and I gave him a promise. I told her, look, if I'm able to save, let's say, 2 years worth of spending, will you allow me to go and do that? She said, yes, we have a deal. So I did actually that, and that made a huge difference. This is part of the financial, conditioning.
Yeah.
You cannot just throw yourself without really planning, all the possible failures. It's inevitable that you're going to have, low moments. You're not going to have enough money. Your business is going to consume, a lot of your money. How do you, go through that without really breaking your financial well-being? It's really important, because otherwise, it's going to be extra stressful, to the extent that it may actually contribute to your failure. So definitely that's one of them. And the other dimension that talks about your personal branding as an entrepreneur, and how do you define yourself beyond the company or beyond the venture that you're doing right now, so that if it doesn't work, it's actually an advantage, for you, or you can use it in your advantage. Before recording, we were talking about the techies and the ones who are want to leave the Microsoft and Google and build
Mm,
their own company. I have an entrepreneur who was talking with me. He's in his late 40s, and he's saying, "Look, I feel that I'm old. If this one does not work out, I'm not going to be employable. I'm not going to work." I don't. Why you're saying that? Look, if it doesn't work, you learned a lot. You learned about business. Did you know about business before doing all of that? He said, no. Okay, you know about that. Did you know how to raise money from VCs? He said, no. Okay, you know all of that. And trust me, you're now 10 times faster than your peers, getting things done. You're much more sharper than them. And once you go, if you decided to go and apply again, even though I would love for you, to continue as a businessman, but even if you decided to go back, it's going to be a piece of cake for you. So don't worry about that. The most important thing is, how do you take all of that and make sure that you're building on it? You're not seeing your company failure as, a complete setback for your whole life. So this is also part of the book. And I use that book as a framework to work with entrepreneurs closely. And one of the things that I personally do is, I help them with their sales and marketing and how to do their go-to-market and how to fundraise. But what is different about how I work on these with them is the what I call it the psychology corner that I always include. When you go and do sales, for example, there's certain psychology that takes place in your mind. How do you beat that? How do you make sure that you're doing this activity in a way that you're always on top of it? You do not feel that you're being beaten every day. No, you're growing. It's rewarding for you. And I guess this is the piece that always is missing. I worked for a long time at the Silicon Valley, and the mantra of fake it until you make it. That's destroying. That's, I would say
Mhm.
it, as they call it, it's a hustle porn. It's part of the hustle porn. It's just no, it's not gonna just take place automatically. You have to, intentionally work on improving your mindset and improving your perspective.
Yeah, and Mohammed, I appreciate it. Everybody, it's boundlessfounder.co is the website. When we click on that, what are we going to find?
So there are different things. You're gonna find definitely free downloadable resources, to assess your mindset. Go and check that. So boundlessfounder.co/resources. You're gonna find a ton of free downloadable resources. There's also a bonus chapter that we just talked about, the financial well-being. Also, we have different tiers of our community membership. You can start there for free, see some of the interesting discussions, some of the also free courses to again assess and see how you can get started with your journey. Or you can upgrade to a paid membership and get even more resources and get to have a live discussion with the rest of the community and myself.
And everybody, if you're thinking about being a founder, if you're struggling, I tell you, don't do it without mentors. Don't do it without some type of a counseling. I would have failed 10 more times if it wasn't for just coaching and my mentors. I'm still best friends with my mentors and still reach out to them today. Uh, if you're interested, give Mohamed a, uh, a reach out at boundlessfounder.co. Mohamed, it's been an absolute pleasure getting to know you and what you do. Thank you for coming on the Richer Geek.
Absolutely, my pleasure. Thank you very much, Mike, for having me.
Thank you.